So we've had these technology changes before, right? Including changes in our cellular technology before. But for some reason, this is a bigger deal, right? Why are making people such a big deal out of it? What is going on? That's what we're going to talk about. So come on, let's talk some tech. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. So, we're going to be talking about the 3G shutdown, the 5G impact, and what, if anything, is happening to 4G. For anybody who has not been a part of this conversation, we have talked about this on and off before, but let's just get everybody on the same page here. Hang on. Ah, yes, allergy season. Okay, so we've had technology changes before. We've had changes in the cellular spectrum. Why is this such a big deal now? Like, why is everybody getting so upset? Why are people being surprised by what's going on? We're going to talk about all of that. But basically, what's happening here is the 2G and the 3G networks that most of us have been using for, at some point in owning a cellular device are being shut down. The 2G is pretty much done. 3G has started in January and is going to go out throughout the year. And when 2G went away, to be honest, most people didn't notice because it was really just restricted to these kind of devices, right? So tablets, phones, anything that was working off of the cellular network, but it was a small list. Sorry. Okay, it's gonna be one of those nights. So it was a 2G and all the previous cellular technology was great as far as mobile like phones and those types of devices, but they didn't really reach much beyond that, right? When 3G hit, it was such a big leap forward. It could do so much, it could handle so much more that we started seeing 3G in everything. Now, you've heard the joke about, like, everything has Bluetooth. Well, it really almost came true with 3G technology because it was possible to do things that were never possible before. And that's why the shutdown is such a problem because people are not aware of the fact that so many of the things that they're relying on every day are actually using that particular piece of the spectrum. And when it gets shut down, and this has already been happening, people are getting a nasty little surprise when they wake up one morning and something isn't working. Now, for most people, this has started out with their phones. So, despite the fact that the companies really did do a fairly good job of trying to communicate this over the past couple of years that this was coming because this is a planned thing. They didn't just wake up one morning and decide to do this. This was planned. There was a lot of back and forth about it, a lot of industry things going back and forth. But it's been coming. Now, granted, a few things have popped up over the past few years that might have distracted everybody, which is totally fair. But the timeline kept moving. So most of the people with the mobile devices, at least, were getting notified through their company. The problem is because most people have gone to paperless billing, they're not opening an envelope and seeing those notification pages, right, that usually come out, right? You're not, how many times do you really go in and check that? And if you do go in and check it, you're really just checking your balance and your account, and you're probably not reading all that other stuff that they used to shove in the envelope. And that's really how they would have communicated this. So then they started to up the game a little bit, and they started texting people and notifying them that they needed to contact the office and that, they could get a trade-in or they could get a replacement phone, all that kind of stuff. But even so, a large number of people were missed. And so one day in January, beginning of February, a lot of people woke up who were AT&T customers with older phones and no service. And that was a problem. Now take that situation, okay, and spread that across all of the different things. And that's why this is a problem. So what we're talking about here is the sunsetting of 3G. It is something that is happening. There are people out there that are saying it's going to get postponed and all that. There was already one postponement, two, depending on how you read it. They're not going to keep postponing this. This is going to go away because they need that for 5G, because that is what they want to push out. Now, there are some people out there that are a little misinformed, shall we say, who are saying, that it's not going to happen because, the 3G, runs on this spectrum and, the megahertz of the frequencies and all this kind of stuff. And they're kind of missing the point because there's a difference between the frequencies, right? the spectrum that they're on and the technology. And what's happening is they're making changes to what they're putting out on that piece of the spectrum that 3G cannot work with. So this is not something that can be fixed with a software update or, changing your SIM or anything like else. It's tied directly into the hardware on that device, and there is no easy fix. So, the people who are trying to convince other people that, 2G and 3G can stay because they're not in the same spectrum, they are, and that's the whole point. The carriers and a lot of us want 5G, and they're going to use that exact piece of the spectrum for 5G. Now, there are 5G rollouts that are out there already that are on a smaller piece of the spectrum, a little bit farther down the line, but they want the whole thing because they want to get out as much of it as possible, and they need that because of all of the things that 3G can do, because it's new technology. Maybe on the same spectrum, but it's new technology. Now, 4G is going to be sticking around for a while, so if you have a 4G device, you're okay. And we're going to go through like what some of the devices so you can start to think about what you might need to look into. But you're okay with 4G. The other thing to keep in mind with all of this is the fact that this kind of stuff is something we're going to have to think about in the future, going forward from this point, when you're making purchases. Because it used to be that if you bought a scale or you bought a car, the mobile technology was not a factor, right? You didn't have to think about that. But now when you're buying these devices and they are using mobile technology to offer you part of the service, that now becomes a factor. And so you'll have to start to think about things a little bit differently and like find out, ask up front before you pay that money, what's the long-term goal here? If I'm going to keep this car for 10 years and something changes in that 10 years, what's the plan, right? What has this manufacturer done to safeguard me and my purchase? That's going to become a very important question going forward, starting now. So that's basically what we are talking about. And just to kind of make it a little clearer why this is an issue, you got to look at it this way. It's the same thing as if you had two radio stations or two over-the-air TV stations trying to broadcast on exactly the same band. That doesn't work, right? The stronger one would win out, or one wouldn't work at all. Now, there are now with over-the-air HD, like there are the subchannels, but they're still running on separate pieces of the spectrum. It's just little slices. So that's about the clearest explanation I've been able to find for people to understand what's going on here. If you just want to know what's important, the important thing is you need to check to find out if you are impacted with this on any of the devices in your life. So let's talk about that now. Let me move this and go here. Wonder if I have this. No, I don't. Okay, so we'll do it this way. All right, so we just talked about what is the 3G shutdown. Okay, and why it's a big deal. We just talked about. So here are some things to think about. Here are some of the devices that this is going to impact. Obvious stuff like your mobile phone and other mobile devices. So, your tablets, all that kind of thing. Also think about smartwatches, right? Because some smartwatches connect directly to your phone. So if your phone doesn't work, then those smartwatches aren't going to work. But also some watches make their own cellular connection. So you need to check those. Also think about like if you're using any kind of runner trackers, right, that are tracking your GPS as you're running or biking or swimming or any of those things. E-reader devices like Kindles and those kinds of things. Definitely these are impacted. These are probably the more obvious ones. Let's get to some stuff that's probably not as obvious. So this is where, frankly, it gets a little scary for some people, and you do want to check into this. And I'm not doing this to scare you. I'm doing this so that you don't end up without the service. So medical alert systems. So, the I've fallen and I can't get up kind of thing. But there's a wide variety of medical alert systems out there. Well beyond that, these types of things are impacted. So the trick here, I don't know if trick's the right word, but the thing to look for here is what technology is that medical device using to communicate to your doctor, to some sort of central station, to somebody in your family. If it's using Wi-Fi, you're good. If it's using 3G and Wi-Fi, you're probably still good because while 3G won't work anymore, it can still use the Wi-Fi as long as you've got that connected in your house. If you don't, then that's an area that you can look into. But if it relies strictly on 2G or 3G, it is going to stop working sometime this year. One other caveat I should mention here is I'm talking about this from the standpoint of the United States. The timelines for this to happen in other parts of the world will be different, but it's still going to happen. But you're going to want to check in your local area to see what the timelines are for these different things. That's another important thing to mention. All right, so let's go back here. So yeah, so medical alert systems of any type you do want to look at. That also includes things like scales. Like some people have, some people have a medical scale that sends information to their doctor or their caregiver to monitor things like, a sudden increase, because maybe, you've got a heart condition and it's a bad sign for you to all of a sudden be carrying extra water weight, that type of thing. And that's just one small example of the types of devices out there. There are ones for blood pressure. There's all kinds of ones out there. And then there's just the general, home medical health monitoring systems, right? So you name it, there's something out there that's helping somebody improve their quality of life. And that usually includes some piece of the puzzle that is communicating back, whether it's to the service, that you're paying monthly for that coverage, sending information to your doctor, to your caregiver, like I mentioned, all of these things. Some of them will even alert services if they detect something that is critical level, right? So if one of these devices that you're relying on says, hey, this person is having a stroke or having a heart attack or their, oxygen levels have dropped, sometimes they will call an ambulance to come to you. But that only works if it can make that call. So again, this is why you want to look at it and see. This is not, panic time as long as your device is still working today, but don't wait 6 months and then find out that it's not going to work. Contact whoever you're getting the device from, have somebody help you with that, contact the service that you're working with and get all that cleared up. At this point in the game, if you call them, they should be able to answer the question of whether or not you have a problem. But don't wait for them at this point to contact you. It's time for you to reach out and check with them. You can also look for the model and the brand and the model number of whatever the device is, which is probably somewhere on the device, usually in the back or on one of the sides. You can search for that online and you may be able to get the answer there as well. So there are options for you. Okay, this is another one that has a lot of people surprised. But when you stop to think about it, you go, oh yeah, this is having an impact on the automotive industry, right? People, all of us who are out there with our cars, right? So this is fairly complex and you're going to want to do some research. You're going to have to make some phone calls. But this is definitely impacting a lot of the newer cars. Now, if you're driving a, 63 Mustang, A, I'm jealous, and B, you're probably okay unless you've aftermarketed something that is using some sort of cellular technology. But you think about things like car safety systems. So that's, the systems that notify emergency services if you've had a crash. Driver assistance. So things like, where you press a button and you talk to somebody and they help you with directions, or they send somebody because you ran out of gas, they put gas in your car, or they make reservations for you in your favorite restaurant, whatever the service is. A lot of those either have stopped working or are about to stop working because they rely on 3G. It goes a little farther than that. So this is just a small list. Other things that could be impacted, which are not maybe as critical as, crash warnings type things, but remote starting your car may not work if it is relying on that type of technology. Remote unlock services. So that's the kind of thing where if you get locked out of your car, you can call somebody and they can remotely unlock your car for you. Well, guess what? That won't work if it's only a 3G connection. The voice assistants we talked about, the GPS, so the live traffic, hazard updates, the onboard mapping systems inside of some cars have stopped working. Smartphone connectivity may stop working. Now, it's not so much the connection to your phone, but it's your phone's connection to the world. That is probably the problem there. The concierge services that I talked about, so like making a reservation or that type of thing. Battery preheat scheduling or even just activation. That's really important. Now we're getting into nicer weather here in the US, but over the winter, there are a lot of places in the US where that's critical before you're going to go out and make it to work in the morning. Things like connected breathalyzers. Okay, not something hopefully that we all have, but it is something else that is impacted by this type of technology and is part of the things that are going to be impacted. Now, you may say, okay, just the breathalyzers are sort of a extreme example, but if you happen to have that in a car, right? Maybe not your fault, maybe, somebody else you share the car with, but regardless, a lot of those won't let you start the car until it takes a sample and sends a sample and gets it verified. So if that data is not going, the car will not unlock and then you can't drive. So it is a problem. But these other things, while they may seem minor, they are still issues, right? It's part of the service of the car, and that may or may not have a big impact on your use of it. There's obviously a sliding scale here. The other part of the problem is a lot of the car manufacturers did not do a good job of planning for this. So some have come up with software workarounds for their particular tools on these cars, and then you're going to be okay. Mainly, those are going to switch you from a 3G to a 4G connection in most cases. But where that's not possible, sometimes they are letting you come in and they're doing some sort of hardware swap. Whether or not that's cost to you or not depends on the situation, but you're going to again want to reach out because historically the automotive industry is not awesome about letting us know about recalls, which this would kind of fall under. So you're going to want to call your service center and make sure. And if you're not happy with the answer they give you, or you're not quite sure that they're up to date on their information, you should contact your car manufacturer because they obviously will have the most up-to-date information. The reality is that there are automotive services and features that will just stop working. There is no workaround. There is no update. They're not offering any new device. They're just going to stop working. Now, the odds are pretty good that those hopefully will be the more minor type of things, like the convenience things. But you have every right to be a little ticked off about that because the odds are you probably purchased that car and that was one of the features that you liked, right? So I'm not downplaying it, but it's an issue. Now, I did mention, the 63 Mustang because, that's always been my dream car. I've never had it. Maybe someday. The other thing is that for some of these things with the cars, it truly is like, slightly older models. But things like the issues around the crash detection, that has been reported to be still in cars that were sold in up to 2021. So I'm recording this in 2022, so last year. So don't think that just because you've got a new car that you're covered, because it's not a guarantee. So you are going to want to check on that. Now, the good news for some people is that for the most part, certain manufacturers are not impacted by this. And that seems to be, based on current information that I've got, Ford and Mazda, mainly because for the big things, they connect to your phone. So as long as your phone still has a good connection, you're good. There's nothing specific to the car that is going to not work. So if your phone is updated and it works on 4G or later, then on those particular cars, any of those services are going to be fine. The other one is Mitsubishi, who evidently saw the writing on the wall early when they started adding this kind of stuff in. I get the feeling that they must have started adding some of this stuff later on, like they weren't the first ones out the gate with it, because they've never used 3G. So again, based on the information I've got, now there may be some rogue thing out there, but in general, the Mitsubishis are good because they are 4G or later now. So you're good on that one. Let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to cover on that one? No. Okay. So again, you're going to have to do some homework. You're going to check on it. Granted, some of these things are more important or less important depending on your situation and your needs. But if you're concerned about not, going to use your car and not having something available, then you're going to want to go and do that research because it's extensive. Now, I have, and I will try to go back and add this into the description here. But in the meantime, if you go back, I'll put the playlist. I think the playlist shows up here. I'll put the playlist of the other shows I've done about this because there's a lot of links in the descriptions on those other shows, including one that lists out the different cars that are impacted. Also, some of the medical devices. The medical devices are a lot harder to find a list on. You're going to have to contact your manufacturer. But so as for other resources, I'm going to put that link up here for you for the replay viewers. And for everybody else, you'll have to wait and come back and check because I meant to put the car list link into the description and I forgot, but I will fix that after the show. Okay, so shall we keep going? I think that was it for the cars. Yes. Okay, so let's leave the automotive market alone for a while and let's talk about your home. So yes, this is going to have some impact on people's homes. The biggest one, the one that's probably the most important, is that some home security systems, aka burglar alarms, but also CO2, fire, that kind of thing, are connected to a cellular signal. So basically, what happened was, so here I'll just backstory this a little bit. So it started off with, if you had one of those systems installed, it connected to your landline, and then of course the landlines went away. So they're like, yeah, no problem, we'll hook a cellular signal up, and that way it'll alert the office. The problem is a lot of those were 2 and 3G, and the home security market was a little slow getting up to speed, but for the most part now, it seems that they either have addressed or at least have a plan in place. So again, you're going to want to reach out to them and make sure that whatever you might need done has been done already or can be done quickly. But that is a rather big one. Then there are other things like meters. So for example, solar panels, for one, so maybe you've got solar panels on your building and, you're feeding it back into the electrical grid, and based on how much solar electricity you're sending back, you get a cut on your bill. Well, if the meter's not working, then you're not getting your cut. But there's also other meters on the house that may be using a cell signal to communicate back, so you're going to want to check on that. Smart home technology, also known as the Internet of Things or IoT, for the most part, these do rely on your Wi-Fi, but there are ones out there that do rely on cellular. So again, it's the kind of thing you want to check. If it is a 3G device, but it also works on Wi-Fi and you have it connected to your Wi-Fi, you're probably fine. If not, if it's solely a cellular connection and it's 2 or 3G only, then you're going to have to reach out to the manufacturer and find out what your options are. If you're not sure, and it probably doesn't say on the device, again, you can look for the model, the brand and the model number, and search online and find it. You can reach out to the manufacturer, hit their website, hit up their tech support, and get it fixed. But again, if these are things that you rely on, and you got to stop and think about this, because at this point, a lot of us have these scattered throughout our home, and we probably are not. It's not front of mind that you're relying on it every day. So you want to stop and think about it. Think about how many times a day, something is supposed to automatically happen, or you talk to one of your smart assistants and something happens. Those are the things you want to check to make sure that everything is going to keep working. Actually, I forgot to add one thing to that one, and that is also there are devices in some people's homes, like perimeter alerts. So for example, if you have a special needs person in your family who has a tendency to wander, sometimes, you can get a bracelet or a necklace or something that will let you know if they go outside of your property, right? Or if they open a door that they're not supposed to open, if they're not, if they're not with somebody who's taking care of them. So those are also the kind of things that you need to check into, because those may not work. Also your pets, right? So a lot of the pets have that kind of device on them too. And again, you don't want to find out after Fluffy has gotten out and wandered 6 blocks away that it's not working anymore because it was relying on 3G, and 3G will be gone. So, like I said, there's a lot more to this. And this again, getting back to the topic for the show, that's why this is a big deal. Because when 2G went away, you got a new phone, end of story. With 3G, it has so many other things that it's impacting, and that's why everybody is starting to go, oh my, I didn't think about XYZ. So I'm trying to keep my people covered so that you don't get a nasty surprise. You are prepared, you have a plan in place, and maybe you already have it taken care of, and so it's never ever going to impact you negatively. That's my whole goal here. Okay, let's keep going. So yes, okay, that was the one I meant to put on there. It is also going to impact business. So location trackers like school buses, mass transit, trucks, even packages, right? Delivery, kind of stuff. All those kind of trackers rely on some sort of connection. Now, Some of them are a shared connection where they like piggyback onto whatever local cell phone is, nearby, and they pass it down the line. Some of them are Wi-Fi based. A lot of them, especially like buses and trucks and that kind of thing, those are going to probably use some sort of cellular connection. And again, if it hasn't been updated, that is going to be a problem. Portable internet hotspots. So if you are or have road warriors working for you who rely on their internet hotspot, you're going to want to make sure that you get them upgraded so that they don't lose time, and because time is money, you want to make sure that that's there. Same thing for mobile payment devices of any sort. So we're talking about, the things that maybe, somebody can swipe the credit card, maybe also the contactless, payment things, but any of those ones that like, landscapers carry around, salespeople can carry around to get those payments on the fly. If you are, let's say that you are a crafter of some sort, right? And you go to those, big craft fairs and, people are paying by credit card, on a device you've got, you need to make sure before you go to your next show that that thing is still going to keep working, that is not relying on technology that is going to be turned off on you. So again, time, business, money, these are things, it's going to take you some time to do some research, but better you find out now than after you've hauled all of your stuff to some sort of event. People are wanting to pay you, they don't have cash, and your service isn't working, so you can't take the other forms of payment. Let's try to avoid that by being prepared and doing the research ahead of time, because, hey, that's money in your pocket, right? Okay. So, just going to bring this up, but it won't stay long. So, how do you know if your devices or systems are impacted? Well, you need to find out, right? You need to go, you need to do your due diligence on it. You need to do some research, reach out to the manufacturer, reach out to the service provider, and make sure that you're getting answers. You're going to have to listen closely, make sure that they're not just giving you an answer to get you off the phone, that you're getting an accurate answer. Also ask around, right? Has anybody else had a problem? Has anybody else seen anything? Keep an eye on things. I will say be a little careful with, what I call the muggle press. So like your mainstream press, because they're not awesome at staying on top of the technology stuff. So, try to go to resources that are a little bit more on top of the technology. We'll just leave that there. But your best bet is to go to the manufacturer or the service provider and get the answer from them, because it's their job, right? You purchase it from them. It's their job for them to make sure that you are able to use what you're paying for. All right, let me just check my notes and make sure I think that covers everything. And it does. Okay. So one other thing that I think is really important, and everybody around me is probably sick of hearing this, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of this. There is a rule, right? Again, we're talking US here. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the US, there is a law that says that you're supposed to be able to call 911 from any device, even if you're not paying for a service. And that is still true. That is still in place. However, there is a small caveat to that, right? The phone has to be able to connect to something. So previously, when people were upgrading their phones, one of the recommendations for what to do with your old phone would be to donate it, right? Or to give it to a family member or keep it around for emergencies. The emergency thing still works if the phone can make calls over Wi-Fi, then you're okay. Just make sure it's set up on your Wi-Fi and you can still use it. But as far as using it for emergencies without a Wi-Fi connection, if the phone is 3G or older, it's not going to be able to make a 911 call because there's nothing for it to connect to, right? So it's the equivalent of having the old, like, rotary phone, right, that you had to, like, plug into the wall. It's the same thing as if you unplugged it and tried to make the call. Exactly the same, right? You could carry around that princess phone from Ma Bell in your hand all day and night, dialing 911. If it wasn't connected to your phone service, it's not going anywhere. It's the same exact thing with these mobile devices. So if you need a phone just for emergency services or just for emergencies, just to have around for peace of mind, and you don't want a monthly plan, then what you're going to want to do is get a phone that will take a prepaid SIM card that is 4G or later. And then that you can keep around for a while, and that will cover you on the security thing. So, or if you don't want to do even the prepaid thing, you can take a 4G phone or even a 5G phone if somebody's giving one away. And those will work for 911 without any service, right? So as long as it's got power and it's a 4G phone or later, you can connect for 911 emergencies. But anything before that, you can't. And again, this is something that the information that's out there is not 100% accurate. So please, I'm telling you so you can be safe. And then I'm counting on you to help me spread the word about this, because the time to find out your phone won't help you in an emergency is not during the emergency, right? You want to know about that ahead of time. That's super important. Okay, so there we go. I think we're good. We're covered on the chat here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for checking this out. Like I said, you can go and check out the playlist. That is in the description, the link. And you can check out the other shows I've done on this and check out the links in those descriptions if you want more information. I am here every Thursday at 8 p.m. If you'd like to know what's coming up in future shows, I highly recommend you join the mailing list, because I always mail out what the topic is for the week to the mailing list. Oh, wait, I should do this one. The other thing is, if you are a content provider of any sort, right? So if you're a business person and you need ideas for your Instagram posts, your Twitter posts, maybe you're doing recordings or live streams, we all hit that mental block day when we need to post and we can't think what to do. I made myself a list of 130 content ideas, shared it with some friends. They found it helpful, so now I'm sharing it with all of my friends. So it's free. Just go to yourtechcoach.net/content ideas, no spaces, and you can get your own copy of it. What I do is I take it, I spread it out, I close my eyes, and I blindly pick, and that's my topic. And it just takes so much stress off. So I'm all about less stress. If you have any questions, comments, if you have an idea for a show, please feel free to reach out, yourtechcoach.net. There's a contact form there. All I ask is if you need a fast answer, please make sure you give me a way to get back in touch with you. Otherwise, all I can do is answer it on a future show. All right? Thank you all so much. Go check all of your devices, even the ones you haven't thought about in a couple of years because they're just doing their thing. Let's make sure they keep doing their thing for you. Let's make sure you're not going to run into any nasty surprises. Get yourself ready. Reach out to the manufacturers or the service providers and get yourself covered so that you have the peace of mind as we go through this process, so that when 3G is finally all gone, you won't have to worry about it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We will talk again soon. Bye.